MC's mom was all beaten up, clutching a knife and asking Aram what she should do. But despite everything going on around him, MC was completely glued to his computer screen, even though his dad had passed away right in front of him. Aram thinks he'll be just fine, even if he ends up completely on his own from here on out. He takes comfort in knowing he'll always have the game Last Eden by his side. On the game's home screen, the guide Eve greets him as Aram and introduces herself. His avatar is an imposing knight decked out in heavy armor, a shield, and a sword. Eve welcomes him once more and asks if they can dive into the game, and that game was the only thing our MC could truly rely on. Back in reality, Aram tells his mom, Eve, that the game is all he needs in his life. Nowadays, Aram wears his school uniform, walking around with a completely lifeless look in his eyes. He was staring at the body of a stray cat lying in the middle of the street. As he stares at the poor cat, he mutters to himself that everything still feels exactly the same. People around him whisper about the cat and comment that Aram is the son of that criminal lady from the news. Two students walk past him, complaining with disgust about the whole unpleasant scene. The kids get annoyed by his stare, whispering to each other that he's a total creep. Aram just keeps staring at the two of them coldly, without saying a single word. The guy asks his classmate if she really doesn't know who Aram is, while she looks totally uncomfortable. He spills the name Aram and gossips about how his mom is a total monster. Walking into the classroom, Aram finds his desk completely vandalized with insults and aggressive drawings. He just stares at the hateful messages without showing a single trace of surprise or sadness. Even with an offensive note taped to his back, he calms himself down by remembering he still has Last Eden. After class, Aram gets home and stands quietly in front of his apartment door. He turns the knob slowly and opens the door to step into his safe haven. He logs right into the world of Last Eden to block out all his problems. This online game is super old, and it's actually where his parents first met and decided to tie the knot back in the day. But as time went on, the family's real life slowly started to fall apart. That game his mom had introduced him to ended up becoming his only safe harbor. A lot of players abandoned the legacy server, but Aram stayed dedicated to the game. To him, that virtual world felt way more real and welcoming than his actual life. In there, he's the absolute strongest warrior of them all, feeling like he can achieve whatever he sets his mind to. Suddenly, Eve's sweet voice calls out his name from the middle of the castle courtyard. She offers a gentle smile and asks if he had a good day today. The max-level, rank 1 player answers back, calling his loyal companion by her name. Aram acknowledges that she's been right by his side from the very start of his journey up to this exact moment. He explains that every other player abandoned her for being a mere beginner guide, but he made sure to keep her close. That was because she was the only constant presence during the most lonely and painful moments of his childhood. Eve gently holds his armored hand and asks if something is bothering him. She reassures him that he can open up and vent to her whenever he needs to. The guide promises she'll always stick by his side no matter what happens. However, an official pop-up notification on the screen announces that the game's servers will be shutting down soon. Facing the terrible news of the shutdown, Aram sits in front of the monitor, completely frozen. He asks himself with deep sadness if the people he cares about are really going to abandon him all over again. Aram thinks to himself that everything he's ever achieved in life is locked away inside that virtual world. He looks over his inventory, packed with legendary items and a mind-boggling amount of gold. All his achievements and his title as the server's top player are at risk of vanishing forever. And to top it all off, he's also going to lose his beloved Eve. Aram fixes his gaze on the screen with a quiet, dark determination. He clicks his mouse, fully set on taking a permanent stance regarding the situation. The game says it's farewell with Eve's classic question, asking if his day went well. Eve asks if something is wrong, reassuring him that he can talk to her anytime. She reminds him once more that she will always be there to support him. Aram sorrowfully recalls her promise that she would always stay by his side. Right after that, the game system displays an alert warning that the server shutdown sequence has begun. He whispers bitterly that she's going to leave him all alone too, just like his parents did in the past. The computer screen shows a 3-second countdown to pull the plug on the server for good. Aram asks himself in disbelief why everyone always walks out on him, because he can't take being alone anymore. With just 2 seconds left on the clock, his chest tightens at the impending end. He confesses that he still wished to keep living that grand adventure with his partner. The final second of the countdown arrives, sealing the fate of the online game. Completely heartbroken, Aram admits that, given the choice, he'd much prefer a totally different reality. With Eve's reflection gleaming in his eyes, he desperately wishes the real world was just like a game. Out of nowhere, a blinding light flashes from the screen alongside a message saying the game isn't over yet. Aram is caught completely off guard, realizing something incredibly strange is going on right there. Eve's image reappears on the monitor, wrapped in a mysterious, radiant glow. The system invites Aram to start playing together, leaving the young guy stunned by the dazzling light. A powerful gust of wind rushes into the room, aggressively blowing the curtains around. Aram wakes up face down on his desk, confusedly asking himself if he accidentally dozed off during the night. Upon seeing the disconnect message on the screen, he begins to convince himself it was all just a crazy dream. Later on, Aram arrives at school under a clear blue sky. He walks silently into the classroom with his backpack slung over his shoulders. All of a sudden, an aggressive voice snaps at him, calling out his full name. A silver-haired guy lands a brutal kick straight to his stomach, calling him a total psycho. Aram drops to the floor with a groan of pain from the sudden impact. The bully yells, asking if Aram was the freak who left that thing on his desk, while the rest of the class whispers in terror. Aram is completely lost, not understanding the accusation, but the guy furiously insists it could only have been him. However, Aram's eyes light up intensely as he notices something unbelievable right behind his attacker. Sitting right on top of the school desk is the realistic, severed head of a level 1 goblin, dripping in blood. Aram zeroes in on the monstrous creature, asking out loud if that thing really is a level 1 goblin. Aram remains on the classroom floor, while the other students stare at him in sheer horror. The classmates whisper in panic, asking if Aram has lost his mind and what on earth he's talking about. To everyone else in the room, the object on the desk is nothing more than the body of the stray cat. The gray-haired bully gets even more enraged by the weird behavior of the convict's son. He steps up aggressively, complaining about how miserable it is sharing a classroom with him, accusing Aram of not knowing reality from fantasy, just like his crazy mom. The guy roughly grabs Aram by his school uniform collar, but Aram just stares right back at him. With his fist raised to throw a punch, the bully dares him to guess what level he might be. Aram stays dead silent, his blue eyes glowing in a menacing spiral pattern. He replies coldly that the bully is nothing more than a weak level 1 opponent himself. The silver-haired guy completely loses his temper and lunges forward to strike him with everything he's got. But right before the blow lands, a mysterious hand wearing a golden gauntlet catches the attack mid-air. The attacker panics as he realizes his arm is pinned, yelling to his classmates to ask if anyone else is seeing this. His fist is held in a vice grip by a pixelated arm that looks like it came straight out of a video game. He goes into total shock when he realizes he can't break free from that bizarre grip. The pixelated arm starts emitting a dark mist that squeezes and contorts the guy's limb violently. He lets out a desperate scream of pure agony as he feels his arm getting crushed by the mysterious force. The young guy drops to his knees on the classroom floor, shrieking in pain right under the horrified gazes of everyone around. Complete chaos breaks loose in the classroom as students scream, unable to comprehend where all that blood came from or what is happening. Right after that, the classroom TV screen glitches out, displaying a mysterious silhouette. The message on the screen states that she has waited for a very long time, and the moment has finally come to fulfill the promise. Suddenly, a powerful, winged golden entity bursts right out of the monitor screen with an overwhelming flash. A gorgeous, radiant winged figure fully reveals herself in front of everyone in the classroom. Aram looks up in absolute shock and starts uttering her name as recognition sets in. Eve lets out a soft sigh of satisfaction, happily commenting that this is finally the heir of the real world. The other students back away in terror, completely clueless about what's going on, wondering if it's some kind of movie setup. Out of nowhere, a status bar with the name Park Min-gyu and a level 1 indicator appears floating right above one student's head. The panic escalates as everyone notices level numbers hovering over their own heads, realizing this isn't just an individual hallucination. Eve steps closer to Aram, tenderly confessing that she waited so long to finally meet him face to face. She spreads her massive white wings and mentions that her heart is already racing at the thought of being together with him. Aram recalls when he was just a helpless kid, crying in the virtual zones of that old game. Eve reflects on how the game world was a total nightmare for her, just like reality was a complete nightmare for Aram. In truth, they were just two lonely souls trying to run away from the pain of their respective worlds. A glowing blue window appears in front of Aram, offering to clear away all obstacles and merge the game with reality. She encourages him to rule over this new world, while the system asks if he accepts playing alongside Eve, highlighting the yes option. She assures him it won't be a difficult task, reminding him that, in a way, he had already passed away once before. Aram relives the terrible memory of his childhood, kneeling with a knife in hand in front of his lifeless father. He takes a deep breath in the present moment and calls out his partner's name with dark resolve. His eyes suddenly shift to a brilliant shade of crimson, and he asks if she knew the whole truth right from the very beginning. While the injured bully continues groaning in pain in the background, Eve watches the young guy's reaction intently. Desperate and sobbing uncontrollably, the guy begs for someone to call an ambulance because the pain is unbearable. All of a sudden, a massive broadsword impales the bully through the back with extreme force, forcing out his final breath. Aram wields the weapon with an ice-cold expression, confirming that it's the exact same sword he used in the virtual realm. With one devastating, bloody strike, the guy who used to torment him collapses lifeless onto the classroom floor. He stands tall over the blood-stained body while holding his giant blade under Eve's watchful gaze. He turns his head slightly to glance back at the scene with absolute detachment. Eve simply calls his name in a soft, calm tone, without showing even a hint of surprise. She offers a warm smile and celebrates that this is precisely what they should be doing together from now on. However, a rapid and violent strike slashes Eve's image right down the middle in a fraction of a second. Aram shatters the system dialog box itself with a powerful swing of his sword. The young guy flashes a smirk, mockingly declaring that he landed a critical hit on her. The game's holographic interface completely splinters into the air from the sheer impact of the attack. Eve's projection begins to fade, dissolving into dark particles in the middle of the room. A massive, terrifying shadow looms right behind Aram as he questions whether he really even needs someone like her. Flexing his max-level title and top-ranking status, Aram superiorly asserts that he's already the strongest being alive. Aram's devastating attack lands directly on Eve, causing her projection to crumble away. As her body vanishes, she mourns the fact that he broke their promise in such a cold-hearted way. With her face cracking into pieces, she sorrowfully asks why he even stayed by her side for so long. Aram plants his foot firmly on the blood-soaked ground, noting that game characters don't seem to go down so easily. He looks at his own reflection on the stained blade of his sword and starts to ponder that question. He points his weapon straight at the guide and bluntly admits that she was nothing more than a placeholder. Aram explains that it didn't have to be her, but since everyone else abandoned him, she was simply the only one left. He tops off his logic by stating there's another much more important reason for acting this way. The scene cuts away to show an isolated women's prison in the middle of a raging storm. With several guards knocked out on the floor, Aram decides he'd much rather go after someone else instead of sticking with her. He reveals that he plans to team up with a far stronger entity that has just awakened in this new world. Without a second thought, the guy begins walking toward the new challenges rising up ahead. Aram brandishes his giant sword with effortless ease, setting up to land his next strike. With a sadistic grin on his face, he taunts his partner, telling her not to go down from just a single hit. He charges forward with everything he's got, saying that if she loses that easily, the difficulty of this world would be totally lame. Eve simply lowers her head in disappointment, realizing the young guy hasn't changed one bit in the end. Facing the taunt, she calmly makes a quick gesture and snaps her fingers in the air. She mutters that he turned out just like every other selfish human she's ever met. A burst of insanely destructive light releases at her command, illuminating the entire classroom. Multiple dimensional rifts suddenly tear open around Eve, exposing nightmarish creatures inside. An attack speeds past lightning fast, managing to leave a small graze on Aram's cheek. He wipes the blood off his face and smirks, commenting that it's been a while since he last got cut. The young guy looks up and recognizes that monster as the exact same opponent he used to hunt back when he was a beginner. The other students in the room fall into utter panic as they watch the monstrous beasts spawn right there. A giant purple level 5 creature opens its mouth full of razor-sharp teeth and lets out a hungry roar. In the blink of an eye, one of the students gets snapped up by the monster, screaming desperately for help. Total terror takes over the room with the bloody mess, making the kids scream, completely lost. In the face of so many gigantic monsters popping up, the panicking students yell for everyone to run. They start trampling over each other in the hallway, begging to find help and telling others to get out of the way. The beasts smash through the windows and drag people out, who cry out in sheer horror, calling for their moms. At that moment, Aram steps up, unleashing a blinding, overwhelming vertical slash right through the chaos. He sports an unhinged look and whispers that he's going to wrap this all up with just one move. His powerful blow hits the giant monster dead center, cleanly slicing the creature in half like it's nothing. The enemy doesn't stand a chance to defend itself and gets instantly diced while letting out a shriek. Aram keeps spinning his sword, wiping out every single target around him with surgical precision. Another monster that tried to jump him from above gets cut down midair without an ounce of mercy. The guy lunges forward with extreme speed, taking out yet another opponent without breaking a sweat. Eve just watches the whole display of raw power with a mysterious smile on her lips. Aram finds the fight absurdly boring and asks if that really was all the potential she had to offer. He walks among the monster carcasses, mocking that those weak pests could never hope to hurt him. Eve closes the distance rapidly, playfully tapping his forehead with her fingertips in an ironic way. She warns him with glowing eyes that a game offering zero challenge wouldn't be any fun at all. Right that instant, Aram's body starts getting sucked in, and he gets warped away to another dimension. As he comes to his senses, the young guy finds himself standing in front of a massive, mysterious stone portal. Aram looks around in confusion as flower petals float down, trying to figure out what kind of new place this is. He carefully analyzes the stone structure and realizes he's standing right at the entrance of the world of Last Eden. Out of nowhere, a dark purple smoke begins to coil and spread across the entire zone. Aram grips his giant sword firmly and waits for whatever is about to crawl out of that darkness. Several high-level, extremely dangerous raid bosses begin to take shape out of the shadows. Surrounded by colossal monsters, he prepares himself for the toughest battle of his life. Eve asks through a holographic screen what Aram thinks of the place she sent him to. She explains she set up that whole stage especially for him, but the guy doesn't even care and readies his stance. Suddenly, an insanely powerful arc of light slashes across the screen with pure violence. Aram casually rests his massive sword over his shoulders, ready to start fighting for real. The young guy grins with excitement, finally able to unleash his skills, deciding to trigger an area of effect slash. He stares at the massive leg of the creature in front of him, commenting that this can't possibly be the full challenge. Aram steps on the field flowers, complaining with disdain that this fight brings nothing new compared to the others. Eve pops up again on the floating screen to give a heads up that was only wave 1 of the fight. A massive shadow begins to cover the MC, who gets caught off guard upon hearing about more waves coming. The system then announces the start of Wave 2 as an even bigger creature starts to materialize. A colossal, level 100 horse spawns wrapped entirely in heavy chains, letting out an eerie neigh across the field. The giant monster tries to use its full body weight to crush the guy, who just waits for the perfect moment to react. With a rapid maneuver, Aram fires off a glowing energy slash that cuts the enemy's chains right in two. The massive creature opens its mouth in shock, letting out a shriek of pain as it takes the counterattack head-on. The young warrior leaps into the air with agility, executing a flawless vertical cut to finish off the opponent. The system panel confirms Wave 2 was cleared successfully as the horse's body collapses. Aram wipes the blood off his face with complete indifference, commenting that he was finding it dull with the monsters coming one by one. Facing multiple glowing screens, he says the whole thing is way too tedious and commands all enemies to pull up at once. The second he drops the taunt, the holographic screens around him start cracking and shatter into pieces. A massive horde of bizarre, bloodthirsty creatures leaps out of the spatial rifts, ready to jump the guy. Within seconds, Aram finds himself totally surrounded by dozens of terrifying monsters charging straight at him. He dodges a claw swipe with extreme agility, quickly reading the coordinated rush of his opponents. Flashing a confident smirk, he raises his massive golden sword, asking if that mob of monsters is really all she's got. The guy starts unleashing a devastating streak of slashes, shredding every beast that tries to get near him. The system logs Aram's consecutive wins, clearing the 3rd, 4th, and 5th waves in mere moments. A huge energy blast goes off in the center of the arena, vaporizing the remaining enemies right on the spot. The MC floats calmly in the middle of a dark void, showing zero fatigue after the non-stop battle sequence. He stares down the remaining foes, asking if they honestly thought they could stop him with so little effort. Multiple beams of light cut through the entire map all at once, slicing up the remaining monsters without giving them a chance to defend. Aram notices a strange bluish glow coming off his weapon and gets curious to see what's going on there. Realizing there are still a few opponents hiding right beneath him, the young guy decides to plunge his blade straight into the ground. The sword impales the subterranean creature deep, causing a massive fountain of blood to spray upward. Aram lets out a psychotic laugh as he gets drenched in blood, commenting that he could finally feel the rush of true combat. He remembers getting beaten as a kid and thinks his late father must have lived for that exact same kind of thrill. The awful memory shows his mom lunging at his father to protect him from another cowardly beating. Back in the present, the guy laughs hysterically, saying with pure madness that this situation is getting way too fun. The system interface pops up again to show that Aram cleared stage 17 with ease. Shortly after, the panel logs stage 31 cleared successfully, with Eve noting that he's gotten way too strong. Clearing stages at such insane speeds starts causing glitched errors and bugs all over the game interface. After plowing through dozens of dangerous stages, the top-ranked player finally reaches the absolute final level of the challenge. He takes a firm step with his armored boot onto the wide field covered in white flower petals. The young guy sarcastically remarks that the monsters were way too weak, concluding that it makes sense since they were summoned by a beginner guide. Out of nowhere, the system panel pops up behind him with a warning that this is the final chance he'll ever get. Eve displays a memory from their past, begging for them to go back to the way things used to be. The game screen officially asks if he accepts joining the virtual universe permanently to stay together forever. Without showing an ounce of hesitation, Aram lands a brutal blow, shattering the system's choice panel to bits. Eve's projection starts glitching, and she angrily warns him that he just threw away his very last chance. The MC just flashes a sadistic grin with glowing eyes, telling her to shut her mouth once and for all. However, Aram's eyes suddenly widen in confusion as he notices a strange movement happening all around. He looks up in complete surprise, asking himself what on earth is happening to the sky of this world. Eve looks down on the young guy, declaring that this chaotic mess is the direct outcome of his choice. Totally shocked, Aram stares at the girl, asking her what she thinks she's doing. She recalls that the game and reality merged, revealing her original plan was to build a perfect world just for the two of them. However, she coldly explains she completely changed her mind the exact second he decided to cross her. To deal with him, Eve decides to open rifts in the sky, merging multiple other video games into the real world. Out on the streets, people panic as they look up and see virtual characters falling straight out of the sky. The terror spikes when citizens realize their own clothes are starting to transform all on their own. Many notice in fear that they are now wearing the exact outfits of their gaming avatars. A news report on a building's TV screen states that identical mysterious phenomena are breaking out all across the country. The news anchor explains that many people's appearances changed overnight, making them look like video game characters. Aram starts calculating the scale of the problem if other games start merging into their reality as well. He realizes that other top-ranking players must have also spawned into the real world after this huge disaster. The MC grips the hilt of his sword, reflecting on the existence of new, powerful opponents out there. Even so, he points his blade at Eve, promising it doesn't matter because he'll simply eliminate every single one of them. Eve gives a sarcastic smile, doubting the guy can pull off something like that without any help. Right after, she makes his body glitch out, asking if he really thinks his overpowered avatar can exist without her system. In the blink of an eye, the guy's power gets drained drastically, and his level drops straight down to level 1. The girl cold-heartedly warns him that there's no paradise left for him in this new world. Aram looks in terror at his own hands reverting to normal, asking himself what she just did to him. With dark, crimson eyes, Eve tells him to turn around and fight through the living nightmare he chose for himself. The entire city around them starts getting torn apart by terrifying explosions as the new chaotic map settles in. The MC stares desperately at the ruined landscape, asking himself where all his legendary armor went. He realizes in horror that his entire max level and high-tier gear simply vanished into thin air. Eve calmly steps up, explaining she took that step because he broke the contract they had set up. Facing his disbelief, she confesses she just wiped every single one of his character's stats clean. The virtual goddess flashes a wicked smile, savoring the look of total defeat stamped on his face. She dares him to try starting his journey completely from scratch as a weak level 1 character. Eve lets out a mock giggle, seeing him stripped of power, unable to defend himself from surrounding threats. To her surprise, Aram covers his face with his hands and starts bursting into hysterical laughter right in the middle of the destruction. He sports an unhinged look with glowing eyes, sarcastically asking what she expects him to do now. The guy walks calmly through the ruined classroom and approaches a tiny mushroom-shaped mob. Without showing a drop of mercy, Aram stomps down with extreme force, crushing the harmless creature into the floor. The system notifies that he leveled up to level 2, and the young guy celebrates that this is the exact kind of world he wanted. Seeing such madness, Eve watches him confused, letting out a soft gasp at his reaction. Swiftly, Aram wipes out another mob, and the system announces he's already reached level 3. The kid lets out another crazy laugh, insanely hyped for the chance to play the whole thing over again from the start. Eve stares at him intensely with glowing eyes, reminding him that he had asked earlier if her power was limited to just that. Paying no mind to the warning, Aram charges forward at full speed to keep his easy kill streak going. However, his eyes suddenly go wide as he senses a massive threat closing in fast right from above. The MC gets slammed by a devastating impact that hurls him violently against the classroom floor. He struggles to get up, coughing as he tries to figure out what on earth just hit him. Eve approaches with disdain, saying that now they're going to test his real strength without his gear. A colossal level 45 monster spawns right behind her while she comments on how pathetic he is without her. The guy stares at the giant enemy from below with a laser-focused, serious look, showing no panic. The monster's sharp claw comes crashing down at extreme speed to try and flatten the fallen guy once and for all. Aram rolls quickly to the side to dodge the lethal strike, letting out a sarcastic chuckle at the dangerous situation. Still dodging around, the young guy mockingly claims he fully expected her to pull a cheap trick like that. Mid-movement, he glances toward the corner of the room and spots a cleaning mop leaning against the wall. He grabs the object with agility, deciding to use it as his temporary new battle weapon. Holding the mop like a combat spear, Aram grins defiantly, inviting the entity to play another round. He grips the wooden handle of the mop with every bit of strength in his hands. In a fast motion, Aram lunges at the monster, thrusting the mop forward like a spear. The creature lets out a shriek of pain as it gets hit square by the kid's precise strike. He notices the mop's damage output is super low, but finds dodging the attacks easy since he already knows all the enemy's attack patterns. With a sharp gaze, he smirks and gets set for the next move. She watches the fight in silence, while the guy comments that the battle is getting way too easy again. The monster tries to attack again, but Aram manages to block the rush like a master. However, the force of the impact breaks the mop's wooden handle right down the middle. Left without his only defense weapon, the young guy quickly backs off while wooden splinters fly through the air. He wipes the sweat off his forehead, admitting his weapon broke way faster than he anticipated. Holding just a broken wooden stick, Aram asks himself if this really is the hard cap of his new character build. Suddenly, a loud snap echoes as the enemy manages to pin him against the floor. The beast's massive paw squeezes the guy hard, threatening to shatter his bones. Aram lets out a cry of pain as multiple small damage numbers start popping up over his body. Even while getting crushed, he taunts his enemies, saying those creatures are nothing but a pile of absolute trash. He grits his teeth in anger, furious at being humiliated so easily by a low-level monster like that. Other mobs approach to jump him at the same time, forcing another painful groan out of him. Eve floats down near him, asking if he finally grasps the severity of his situation now. She looks down on him coldly, stating in plain words that he is absolutely nothing without her help. Even on the brink of passing out, the kid flashes a defiant grin, asking if he's truly incapable of doing anything on his own. The virtual goddess just wears a slight mock smile at the guy's non-stop audacity. She decides to turn around to leave, stating she's going to let him try to fend for himself from here on out. Before fully vanishing into light particles, she warns him that he'll soon be crawling back, begging for her help. The projection completely dissolves, leaving behind only the notice that he'll be looking for her again very soon. Without Eve around, the 3 level 45 monsters gear up to land the finishing blow on him. Lying on the floor, Aram shows a relieved smile now that she's gone, commenting that the fun part is just getting started. The monsters open their massive jaws, ready to devour him once and for all. Aram's eyes glow intensely as he thinks to himself that Eve really knows how to keep him entertained. He recalls past moments of desperation while hearing painful whispers and sighs in his head. Out of nowhere, a girl with headphones and silver hair hangs upside down and asks if he's doing okay. Aram slowly opens his eyes, totally confused about who this mysterious girl could be. She checks out the giant monsters holding Aram down and comments with relief that she made it in time to help. The girl extends her arm with resolve, calling those monstrous beasts noisy little pests. Glowing rhythm game lanes start spawning in the air while she comments on the sweet spot difficulty of the fight. A massive sonic blast hits the beast head-on, making it scream in pain instantly. Under the heavy impact of the musical technique, the colossal creature crashes hard onto the ruined floor. Finally, free from the monster's lethal grip, Aram drops to his knees on the ground, coughing violently. He forces his head up with difficulty, asking in a weak voice who that mysterious savior really is. The girl takes her stance in front of the enemy horde, while a shower of glowing musical notes begins to fall all around her. The system triggers a famous high-difficulty rhythm game track called Flower Dance. Massive pillars of light and sound flatten the beasts trying to charge at the duo. The flood of rhythmic notes hits the mobs relentlessly, clearing everything with total ease. Watching the whole display from the ground, Aram wonders if that girl is one of the top players Eve mentioned earlier. He concludes she can only be another rank 1 player pulled straight out of a completely different game. The girl's hands move with insane speed across a virtual keyboard, hitting a crazy combo streak. The combo count keeps climbing insanely high while the surrounding beasts get completely wiped out. Aram watches that skill show in total shock, blown away by the pixel-perfect timing of her attacks. Finishing off a perfect score on all notes, a massive column of golden light detonates in the middle of the classroom. The The dust starts to settle, and the girl turns around, pointing at the guy with a friendly smile on her face. In the background, the bodies of the colossal monsters lie completely beaten, turning into ashes. She reaches out a friendly hand to help Aram up from the classroom floor. The girl says with a nice smile that she finally managed to track him down after searching for so long. Hyuna reveals she had been looking for Aram for a really long time, proudly flexing her rank 1 badge from her rhythm game. However, Aram gets super annoyed by her intrusion and coldly asks if she's looking to get wiped out right then and there. Taken aback by the hostility, her cheeks turn red, and she awkwardly explains she just wanted to lend a hand. The guy ignores the girl, complaining that the fight was just about to get fun before she ruined it. Even weakened, he pushes off the floor and tightly grips the broken piece of wood he was using as a weapon. He stares at his own reflection on the blood-stained floor, scoffing that the whole thing has gotten totally lame. Right after, he walks past the girl without giving a single thought to her presence there. Suddenly, the guy's body completely gives out, and he starts falling forward without reacting. Hyuna is left completely frozen, letting out a gasp of utter shock as she watches the kid collapse right in front of her. She catches him before he hits the deck, desperately asking herself why he passed out so out of nowhere. Trembling in fear, she cradles his head in her hands, praying that nothing worse happened to him. The girl begs him to wake up right now, screaming that this tragic turn of events doesn't make any sense at all. With tears streaming down her face, the silver-haired girl mutters that he can't go out in such a miserable way. However, Aram's stamina drops to 0, and he completely blacks out on the cold school floor. The surrounding map glitches out with virtual sparks, and the girl screams in panic at the distortion. In another school hallway, survivors run for their lives, trying to escape a terrifying new threat. Hyuna carefully peeks through the door crack, trying to figure out what's going down outside. She spots several students running in absolute terror while being relentlessly hunted by a terrifying dark knight. The heavy armored monster cruelly slashes through every human trying to flee down the narrow hallway. The enemy's dark armor radiates a heavy crimson energy of pure destruction and chaos. Another student gets struck directly in the throat by the fast attack, dropping dead onto the bloody floor. A girl with cat ears and a tail gets flung far away with extreme violence by the villain's blow. She crashes onto the ground, badly hurt, reaching out a dusty, blood-soaked paw, begging for help. A dark silhouette slowly walks up to her, asking if she belongs to the same classroom. The cat girl recognizes her classmate, remembering she's the rank 1 player from that rhythm game. Crying uncontrollably, the girl begs for help, trying to remind her that the two of them are close friends at school. Hyuna just stares back with a completely cold gaze, questioning if they actually ever had a real friendship. The wounded girl panics, forcing a terrified smile to try and convince her that they really are friends. In the blink of an eye, a terrifying wave of red energy slashes through the air, wiping the girl out mercilessly. The terrifying dark-armored killer absorbs a massive chunk of experience points after the brutal kill. Hyuna watches that horrific scene from a few feet away, totally paralyzed by sheer horror and shock. The high-level demonic knight celebrates the huge amount of EXP he just scored so easily. A bright, bluish light wraps around the monster's body as the system readies his final evolution stage. The holographic panel notifies that he hit the max level of 250, becoming the #1 player in the game. The armored warrior grins satisfied, thinking it was a genius move to train an alt character for battle. Hyuna keeps shaking in fear, realizing she's standing face-to-face with the new most powerful player in the world. The knight takes off his helm, revealing himself as Aram, who smirks and states that the real game starts now. The scene cuts to a red apple lying cracked on the floor, bringing back memories of his childhood. In the flashback, his mom appears badly bruised on the floor, barely whispering her son's name. Little Aram watches her with his blue eyes glowing, calling out to her softly in a voice filled with sorrow. Aram stares at his mom, asking coldly if he should take out his own dad to finally put an end to all her suffering. The boy explains that, in computer games, taking down bad mobs that hurt people is super simple. He adds that he feels he could take out his own dad just as easily as he defeats an enemy in a game. The mom's eyes go wide in terror at her son's words, pleading with him never to say such an awful thing again. Crying hysterically, she insists on explaining that his dad isn't a real monster despite everything. She says her husband is just going through a tough time in life, reminding him that he didn't always act violently. Even bruised and crying, the woman forces a loving smile to soothe the little boy's heart. Finally, she gently rests her hand on Aram's hair to comfort him in the middle of that cruel reality. His mom pulls him into a tight hug, promising with all her love that she will always do whatever it takes to protect him from harm. Back in the present, Hyuna tightly hugs the guy's dark armor while sobbing uncontrollably. Between heavy sobs, she confesses she freaked out thinking he had really passed away at the hands of those monsters. Aram stares at her with zero emotion, telling her coldly that she's been testing his patience for way too long. With a rough shove, he pushes her off his chest, making her gasp in surprise. The young guy asks who she thinks she is to keep stalking him around, demanding to know what she actually knows about him. Super shyly, she tries to explain she always watched him from afar because she felt they both had very similar life stories. She gives a soft smile and confesses her only wish was to be able to help him get through the struggles. She explains she wanted to shield him from all the selfish people who usually look down on him. Aram just pulls a dark look, smirking as he listens to her reasons. He plants his massive sword onto the blood-stained ground, whispering that he finally gets the whole picture. The girl feels a shiver run down her spine and takes a step back, totally lost by the guy's cold reaction. Aram closes in on her with an intimidating look, commenting that he's super curious about one specific detail. He asks in a challenging tone how long a top-ranked player from another game could last in combat against him. The scene shifts to highlight the school's exterior under a clear blue sky. Suddenly, the glass windows of one classroom blow out in a spectacular flash from the force of a battle. The MC charges, attacking in a rage while Hyuna backs up frantically, begging him to wait up. He throws a heavy swing at her while she screams, asking him to at least hear her out for a second. She makes a quick movement backward to avoid getting sliced, yelling once more for him to pay attention. She ends up losing her balance and falling flat on the floor of the ruined classroom, letting out a groan of pain. In the final millisecond, she crosses her arms to try and guard against the devastating attack coming from above. Aram leaps with all his force, swinging a brutal vertical slash right down at the defenseless girl. The young guy notes her movements, thinking that even though she seems clumsy dodging the blows, she manages to slip past every single one of his lethal attacks at the exact split second required. Aram gets even more serious, realizing he's dealing with someone who has insane reflexes. Annoyed by her perfect dodges, he screams that she's absurdly annoying, attacking with even more fury. Hyuna manages to conjure a rhythmic magic barrier to stop the impact of his sword mid-air. She anxiously touches her headphones, terrifiedly asking herself if her battle gear took damage. He takes advantage of the opening, asking mockingly why she refuses to fight him for real. Aram keeps advancing slowly, complaining that she does nothing but run away from his swings the whole time. The guy activates a powerful skill that summons dozens of glowing swords floating in the air around him. With an intimidating glare, he commands her once again to stop running and start fighting properly. A relentless rain of rhythmic blades drops straight toward the girl, who just shields her head and screams in terror. Even backed up against the wall debris, she points her index finger up with resolve. She yells firmly that she already told him she has zero intention of getting into a real fight with him. A dome of glowing rhythm rings materializes around her, perfectly parrying every single one of Aram's swords. Aram's eyes go wide in shock, seeing his blades deflected, wondering what kind of wild skill that even is. The kid reads the situation, asking himself if that rhythm barrier is purely defensive with zero attack power. Hyuna starts breaking out in a nervous sweat as her hands move hyper-fast to keep up with the rhythm game's system speed. She freaks out noticing the note speed is off the charts, claiming she's never seen such an insane difficulty level in her entire life. Aram keeps a cold face, repeating indifferently that her defensive playstyle is ridiculously boring. He pops up out of nowhere right behind her with his giant sword raised, saying fighting like this is no fun at all. Sensing him right behind her, her eyes go wide in absolute panic. A deafening boom rings out as the two collide with full force in the middle of the smoke. Aram's eyes shine with intense energy as he forces his lethal attack against her barrier. She manages to trigger her ultimate battle form, warning him with a cheeky smile that she can play hardball too. Aram breaks into a wide, crazy grin upon realizing she holds max rank titles across multiple video games. Total hype takes over him as he cheers, saying that this is exactly how things were supposed to be. The two young warriors start trading absurdly powerful swings, generating violent shockwaves across the room. The brutal impact of their clash sets off a huge explosion of light that demolishes the school's central courtyard. The massive golden shockwave spooks nearby students, who scatter while screaming in terror. Off in the distance, people on the street get startled by the noise, asking if that was a bomb and telling others to run. Eve observes the sky filled with colorful lightning, while people run frantically right behind her. Inside the smoke, Hyuna and Aram continue trading ultra-fast, destructive sword blows. Eve watches that insane fight, whispering in total disbelief that something like that shouldn't even be possible. She realizes he had another secret alt character and stands completely stunned by the discovery. Even shocked, she tries to keep her cool, telling herself she can simply reset his new character. However, a system warning pops up on screen stating that that specific character cannot be deleted under any circumstances. Eve slowly lowers her hand in utter shock, unable to get why the system glitched out. Out of nowhere, a mysterious man steps out from behind the reality rifts, finding it super interesting that her powers don't work on him. He mockingly explains that that avatar probably wasn't created on her game server. Completely surprised, the virtual goddess turns her head, demanding to know who he actually thinks he is. The man cracks a wide, challenging grin upon hearing Eve's question about his real identity. Suddenly, a massive demonic wing rips out of his back with a lot of blood, revealing he's an NPC summoned because of her. The vessel starts coughing up blood, complaining that the body of that gambling addict is insanely gross and lifeless. Eve's eyes widen in absolute panic as she witnesses that wild transformation. The new demon entity finishes tearing through the host's body, sadistically shouting how refreshing it feels. Massive hands made of pure darkness start rising from the floor, trying to box the girl in. He walks stylishly over the trail of destruction, asking if he should start calling her his nemesis from here on out. The entity officially introduces himself as the dealer from the gambling game, thanking her for finally letting him step into the real world. He walks over with an imposing presence toward the virtual goddess in the middle of the ruined school courtyard. With a look of disdain, the blonde demon in a suit states he realized she just lost absolutely everything she owned. Eve stares at him with cold sweat rolling down her face, unable to hide her stress facing that new threat. He flashes a casino chip showing her image, mocking that the goddess looks just like a broke gambler who lost it all on a bad bet. Furious at his taunt, Eve screams at him to shut up, asking what he thinks he actually knows about her. The villain asks her to cool it, mockingly assuring her that his only goal there is to offer some valuable help. He tosses a few magic cards into the air, promising to build a new top-ranked player specifically to assist her. He explains that his own elite fighters tend to shift constantly, working just like a game of chance. With an ambitious look, he reveals he's plotting to raise his own top-tier champion. The demon proposes they strike a mutual deal, claiming he wouldn't want to get wiped out right after reaching reality. He notes that controlling every single player would be way too much work, but luring just one over to his side is super simple. He explains that weak people who run away from the harsh real world and cling to video games are prime targets. They're insanely easy targets to manipulate and break emotionally with just a single well-placed move. He wraps up his point by saying that since she was the one who allowed his birth, he'll place his first big bet right on her. Eve listens to the demon's bold offer with dead seriousness, starting to weigh the perks of that agreement. He holds out a racer card, asking what she thinks about closing that sweet deal with zero risk on her end. The scene suddenly snaps to show a massive traffic jam jammed up on a city avenue. A driver wearing glasses honks angrily, complaining that the city traffic isn't moving at all. In the car next door, a couple talks anxiously about the weird news they heard earlier on the radio regarding monsters spawning. The guy in glasses laughs it off, commenting that nowadays any AI-generated video looks real, brushing it off as total fake news. The woman agrees, joking that if all that were true, her own game-addicted son would have already conquered the whole planet. The driver gives a confident laugh, bragging that if the world turned into a game, he'd handle the whole situation himself with ease. The very next second, a deafening crash echoes outside, making the guy's eyes pop in sheer shock. Multiple vehicles start getting tossed violently into the air right in the middle of the wide avenue. The couple looks horrified through the windshield, spotting a red racing cart speeding up at insane speeds straight toward them. They are left totally lost, realizing the weird race car is heading the wrong way down the street out of control. A glowing turbo icon showing top speed with the letter B materializes floating over the vehicle. The red cart plows over every car as if it were on a racetrack, leaving a massive path of destruction in its wake. The whole avenue gets engulfed in flames and wreck, while survivors groan in pain trapped under the crushed metal. Inside the cart, the tiny racer with demon horns lets out a sigh of satisfaction, celebrating that it's been way too long since he last drove freely. The little demon driver steps on the gas even harder, hyped up that this is what feeling truly alive is all about. Meanwhile, Aram and Hyuna keep staring each other down in the middle of the ruined battlefield. Hyuna tries to talk it out, explaining he's getting it all wrong, and that she genuinely just wants to help him out. Aram lets out a mock laugh, asking if she honestly thinks someone weak like her could ever help him. The guy steps forward with disdain, coldly stating she's nothing more than a fun little toy to him. All of a sudden, a loud engine roar grabs both of their attention right in the middle of the scene. Aram quickly glances off to the side, surprised by that unexpected interruption. The little red cart comes drifting in, kicking up a huge cloud of dust around the two of them. Aram turns his head slightly, keeping his eyes locked on the approach of that weird race car. Hyuna is also left in shock, noticing the sudden arrival of the masked creature inside his vehicle. The driver pulls up and asks if that guy in the dark armor is the famous Aram. The cart's engine roars loud, spewing smoke and small sparks of fire across the courtyard. With glowing eyes beneath his helmet, the driver asks himself if he should fight with full force right from the start. He repeats the question mockingly, staring down the guy with zero respect. The cart's tire screeches against the ruined floor, showing the driver is ready to step on the gas with everything he's got. The system tags him as the top-ranked max-level driver from the game Death Race, ready to show off his speed. He starts pulling fast donuts around Aram and Hyuna, poking fun at the two warriors. Aram plants his massive golden, blood-stained sword into the ground, looking thoroughly bored with the whole situation. The MC lifts his heavy weapon once more with total ease, gearing up for combat. He points the blade toward the cart, questioning if an insignificant piece of trash like that is really an elite player. Hyuna is taken aback by Aram's arrogance, while he asks himself how these trash mobs always manage to find him. The demon driver doesn't let the insult get to him, replying that his curiosity won't last very long anyway. He warns in a sadistic tone that Aram is about to get run over mercilessly under his cart's wheels. The guy stares at the driver, randomly commenting that he gives off an extremely gross smell. Aram flashes a sadistic grin, thinking that fighting another elite player might finally end up being fun. The red vehicle blasts off at an absurd speed, leaving a trail of fire and destruction on the ground. Hyuna catches her breath, seeing the unbelievable speed of the race cart rushing at them. The driver mocks their slowness, daring Aram to keep talking trash while trying to dodge. Suddenly, a solid, bright impact rings out right inside the courtyard smoke. Aram blocks the hit with his sword, calmly analyzing that opponent's only strong suit is fast speed. He stares right up close at the driver mockingly, asking if he has any other skills besides driving around. The driver takes a tight turn in the courtyard, setting up his vehicle for another lethal rush. The demon admits in surprise that was the very first time a mere human managed to block an attack from him. The vehicle slams into Aram's sword with full force, daring him to hold up against back-to-back impacts for long. Even under the heavy pressure of the tires grinding against his blade, the guy holds his ground in the exact same spot. Aram checks out the opponent's strength with total indifference, letting out a mental yawn. His blue eyes shine brightly behind his messy black hair. The MC warns the opponent that he's absurdly lame, preparing to land a counterattack. The holographic panel reveals the trigger of a perfect counter skill in exchange for weapon durability. Aram's counterstrike hits the vehicle with full force, tossing it backward with violence. Aram scratches his head in frustration, saying the race champion is nothing more than an annoying fly that only knows how to run. The demon driver gets furious at the insult, muttering that comparing him to a fly is way too cruel. He hits a secret switch on his cart's dashboard, warning that the main engine just got fired up for real. The vehicle's speed gauge hits the red line, unleashing an extreme, dangerous power boost. A huge pillar of fire and destructive energy bursts out from the back of the race car. Aram feels a violent gust of wind blow right past him, realizing the opponent moved in a split second. The driver pops up right in front of him out of nowhere at top speed, revealing he still has one more special turbo left to use. He triggers the final booster, promising to crush Aram's entire body into tiny bits under his wheels. Hyuna senses the deadly danger and quickly runs to throw herself between the car and Aram using her sound barrier. She mentions she had no plan to interrupt his fight, but that opponent's attack looks way too dangerous for him to tank alone. Aram gets intrigued, realizing Hyuna managed to catch an attack that was practically invisible. Tone shifting serious, he warns the girl with headphones not to butt into the fight, since that game is exclusively his. He flashes a dark grin, warning her that she'll be his next opponent the second he wraps things up with the driver. The cart driver gets pissed, calling them cowards for trying to jump him 2-on-1. Locked in, Aram checks the fight data, recalling the opponent called that fast rush a boost. He notices that whenever that special skill goes off, the opponent's power gauge climbs big time. The MC concludes his main goal right now has to be stopping the opponent from using that boost. With a rapid motion, Aram swings a vertical slash straight into the ground with all his power. The cart driver dodges with ease, laughing and saying that attempt to stop his drift was way too slow. Aram keeps a focused gaze, not caring one bit about his taunts. He pulls off a fast streak of spins with his sword, carving multiple rifts into the ground around the vehicle. The race car starts sliding out of control in the deep grooves Aram carved into the dirt. Surprised by the tactic, the driver grips the steering wheel tight, realizing the MC isn't messing around. But he goes right back to mocking Aram, saying he only knows how to defend and that his hits are still way too slow. The red car keeps running in circles at top speed, kicking up a massive cloud of dirt. Aram plants his giant golden, blood-stained sword into the ground with total calm. The sharp blade digs deep into the dirt, setting off a continuous tremor across the spot. Aram gives a heads up that he has the perfect skill to handle arrogant racers, leaving the opponent intrigued. Out of nowhere, massive dark rifts start cracking the ground around the cart with force. The driver doesn't get the plan, asking what Aram thinks he's drawing on the floor. Right away, the avenue's concrete completely collapses into a dark abyss. Aram's glowing blue eye reflects the image of the red cart plunging out of control into the rift. The holographic panel reveals the trigger of a special gravedigger skill that buries enemies alive. He officially casts the burial technique, sealing the fate of his racing opponent. The red vehicle drops straight down toward the deep, dark abyss, surrounded by massive boulders. The MC coldly warns that after getting buried alive in that pit, the driver will never be able to step on the gas again. The rift snaps completely shut, swallowing the race car into absolute darkness. However, two super bright headlights click on right in the middle of that total blackness. A colossal geyser of pure energy detonates from the bottom up, blasting through the ground with crazy force. The red cart flies up into the air equipped with bat wings, and the driver calls him an insolent rookie. He mocks the MC, arrogantly stating that races don't just happen on the ground. The race car drops out of the sky wrapped in a massive column of destructive golden light. The demon asks if that weak, slow kid is really the #1 player on the server. Aram blocks the aerial strike with his sword, commenting that the opponent talks way too much for someone who doesn't even know true speed. With a sadistic ear-to-ear grin, he mocks him, saying the driver doesn't even use his own legs to run. The demon driver's eyes go wide under his helmet at that taunt. A quick grayscale memory flashes a horrific car accident with a body laid out on the asphalt. The demon grits his teeth in deep rage as he remembers that painful image from the past. Totally enraged by the jab about his legs, he goes all out as his power bar explodes. A massive explosion of flames and red smoke consumes the school's entire central courtyard. Hyuna quickly turns around, startled, hearing the deafening crash of that violent collision. She walks over worriedly toward the huge curtain of golden flames that formed on the spot. Inside the fire, Aram uses his sword to hold off the violent push of the flying cart. The driver mocks Aram, asking if he finally threw in the towel on trying to block his max boost. The young guy answers with pure coldness that he gave up because he realized trying to stop him was totally pointless. He flashes a taunting smile, asking if that really is the opponent's top speed, calling him slow. The demon explodes in a rage at the non-stop humiliation, screaming that he's an arrogant brat. The cart's onboard system triggers max power mode, covering the vehicle in heavy flames. A sonic boom shatters the surrounding building walls as the vehicle launches with full force. Out on the street, a survivor looks up terrified, seeing massive debris flying around, screaming for everyone to get back. Hyuna tries to slow down her heart rate, commenting super spooked that boom almost scared her out of her skin. She breathes a sigh of relief for not getting hit by blood, asking herself what Aram is planning to pull off now. The girl checks out the huge burning crater ripped into the building, curious about her classmates' true motives. The scene shifts to show a large bridge over the river that just got wrecked by the blast. Inside the debris and smoke, Aram sits calmly, holding his broken blade. He looks at his cracked weapon, commenting with a calm face that it finally shattered completely. The demon driver stares at him from a distance, mocking the guy, asking if he finally decided to throw in the towel. He laughs out loud, pointing out that Aram now has 0 weapons left to keep up the fight against him. But Aram just calmly replies that the opponent must have burned through all the energy from his boosts as well. The demon replies sarcastically that even without his special turbo, he's still strong enough to beat trash like him. In the blink of an eye, Aram pops up right in front of the cart with absurd speed, landing a clean hit. The opponent is left totally lost, seeing a dagger jammed into his dashboard, remembering his sword had broken earlier. With a cheeky smirk, Aram explains he should thank the opponent for shattering his previous sword. The system panel confirms that breaking the giant sword refunded Aram all the rare materials used in crafting it. He reclaims the twin blades of promise, a pair of quick daggers designed specifically for high-speed chain combos. Crossing his glowing blades right in front of the driver, Aram asks in an intimidating tone if they can restart the duel. His eyes shine crimson as the system announces his class change to Butcher, promising a battle of unmatched speed.